Lars Westra, I'm so excited to have you leading by example at WECAN. You lead as a speaker, a writer, and a youth advocate, and with your really amazing story, you are getting the world to listen to children more because it's important. The future depends on it. As a children's rights activist, you lead with great energy, with vision, and with confidence. You did a TEDx talk, are a youth delegate to the UN, and have shared your vision ever since you're a young teenager. You feel we adults, as in my generation, we need to listen to you young people more. Ever since you're standing up, showing up, and speaking out for the world to take young people and their visions seriously, as you live with the consequences of we adults decide and the actions we take. You feel that together we can tackle the challenges better and build a future together better. Why can't children help build this future? Lars, welcome to WECAN and thank you so much for joining me today. What would you say matters most to you and how would you want to matter in the world?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here and for this beautiful introduction. Um, what matters to me, of course, are the children's rights. As you said, I'm a children's rights defender or an activist, how you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I think it's essential that we listen to children, that we listen to young people when we talk about them. So what you often see, let me start with an example, is if we talk about education, for example. If we talk in politics about education, we speak with teachers. We speak with chairs of boards of the school. We speak with parents. We speak with the people making the policy for the school. But we forgot to speak with the students and with the children themselves. Um, and that is bad, I think, because they are having their own vision. They're having a unique vision on the whole education system, and we're forgetting them. And their vision can really improve policy we make about education. So that's one example. I think what I want to say is that we have to listen to children if we're talking about children. So what matters to me is that we see children as equal partners in our conversations, in the policy making processes, not only for governments but also for companies, also for organizations. Everyone working with should be working with children if they're working on topics that matter to children. So I think that matters to me. Then your other question was, how do I want to matter?
Yes, sort of. What would you like your legacy to be? I mean, I understand you are really young, which is super important because you're speaking up for all the young people. So, if you imagine yourself in your later life, what would you like to
Mhm.
look back on and think, yeah, that's where I really made a difference?
When I started this journey as working in children's rights, I really wanted to matter. I really wanted to be heard, because it felt really frustrating that I thought I had very good ideas about the problems of our generation, but no one was listening.
Mm.
So that was I think that was my ultimate goal, to matter, to be heard. Um, and when working with organizations and companies and governments on these topics that matter to me, I felt that it was really important to be heard, but also that there are so many children who aren't heard right now.
Mm.
Um, so I kind of shifted my goal. I didn't want to matter anymore. I wanted children and youth in general to matter. I wanted them to have a seat on the table where decisions were being made about them.
Yeah.
Um, so in the way, how do I want to matter? I really want to be like a sort of megaphone for youth voices. I want to be a representative of youth who cannot speak or who don't want to speak up for themselves. So I'm trying to do that in a lot of different roles. You already named some in the beginning. I'm the EU Youth Delegate to the United Nations, for example, which means I can represent young voices of young Europeans at the UN in New York.
Mm.
I'm also the vice chair of the Dutch NGO Coalition on Children's Rights. And both of them are a bit representative roles. So from European youth at the UN, or from Dutch youth as a sort of watchdog collective
Yeah.
on children's rights. Um, so I think that that's the red line in all my activities, that I want youth voices to matter at the places where I think they should matter.
Lars, so talk us through those pivotal points that you feel that led you to where you are today, where you care so much for youth voices. You really advocate in different capacities for this to change, for us adults to take young people onto all the decision-making tables, whether that is, in our society, in politics, in our businesses. If you have products that you market to children, children have to be at these tables. So talk to us about your story a little bit, those points that took you to where you are today.
Yes, of course. So as I said, I started when I was 9, and I wanted to have my own small business. And I thought, well, as probably one of the few 9-year-olds with their own business, um, as business plan, I need to choose something that children are unique in. And I came up with their vision, their perspective, their way of looking at the world, because I think that's very different than adults are looking at the world, and not really better or more worth the youth visions, but I think it's so different that if you can combine them, you can accomplish the best things. So I thought, okay, then I'll go advise companies, organizations, governments from this vision of children. Together with other children, we'll make it a great party. And I did some great projects, but I also noticed that adults were not really used to listening to children, not really on the same level, on the same in an equal level of what the value of your opinion is. So I thought, okay, then I have to change that first. So I went to my municipality and I gave a speech and I said, you need to listen to children. You are determining what our future looks like. You are determining what our lives today look like. I want you to listen to us as well, because we have great ideas and we can actually help you if you open the doors and if you give us a seat at the table. And they liked my speech, and I was like, okay, this is good. I can do this in another place too. So I went to the government parliament sort of my province, and I gave a bit of the same speech, and I also got nice reactions. And then one a member of this provincial parliament, she said to me, this is not your opinion. This is the opinion of someone else. You are being abused by others, and you are being put here in this debate about young voices, about climate change, about equal opportunities, where I spoke about. You are being abused, and you have to play football and chase the girls and leave it up to the adults to decide what to do. Well, at that time, I was 12. I was in it was a very, very small room, a lot of people, cameras, politicians. I was really nervous. And then this politician said this to me, that I had to play football instead of giving my opinion. I was flabbergasted, to be honest. And that was the moment where I thought, okay, we have a long way to go in making sure that the voices of young people are valued in the same way as the voices of older people. But we have to do it, because we cannot trust politicians like her to make decisions that are for our future as beneficial as they are for their lives themselves. So that was the moment I thought, okay, a company was nice, a small business was nice, but we need to defend children's rights, because if we don't, it can be a very bad situation.
Yeah, so talk to us a bit more about this is your 12-year-old self. Where are you now? What are all the positions you hold that you really fight for? Where you did a TEDx talk, talk to us about that. How is your role at the UN? How do you have so much confidence to show up for this really big cause? Because it's a massive cause. It's a really important cause. How do you feel you can embody that and show up as that?
I think there are a lot of things that inspire me, and those are the things that I carry with me to every stage I give a speech, to every interview I do, to every podcast I do, to the UN in New York, where I was only 2 weeks ago, to a TEDx, for example, and that those things that inspire me are on one side, children and youth that are fighting for a better future in their own communities. So I had the opportunity to visit a lot of amazing places, from young people in asylum seeking centers, young refugees who are trying to get their life back on track after they had to flee a country where there was war and violence. to places in West Africa, like the ninth poorest country in the world, where they were still happy and they were still dreaming about their future, and they were actually children of young people who are really had a hard life, but who made sure that the things they could do, they did for other children to make sure their lives were better. Um, so children fighting for their rights and fighting for the things they believe in, that really inspires me. But also the other side, when you see things that are really horrible, wars in the world where children are in the middle of, climate change that is really harming our lives already now, but also our future. Disrupted education, mental health issues. Well, there's a long list I can give you. So those things really show the importance of standing up for children's rights, but also making sure that children who are facing these issues have a seat on the table, so they can raise these topics and they can ensure that these topics are actually tackled adequately. So when I go to a TED talk, this is what I keep in my mind. And like before every speech and every interview, I say to myself, it's not about me. It's not that I'm giving a speech here. I'm standing here with hopefully thousands and millions of children and youth behind me, because I speak on their behalf. I want to change something for them, and I feel the responsibility of someone who was born in the Netherlands in a wealthy family, in an environment where I got the chances I wanted. And I feel the responsibility to also come up for children who didn't have these chances, because I think we need their perspectives as well, because we're going to tackle a lot of issues when in a couple of years, maybe 10, 20, we are governing the world, our generation. We have to solve a lot of issues, and we need all the perspectives we can, and we cannot afford it to only have the rich, white, male perspectives, because then we're not gonna make it. We cannot solve the problems we face. So we need all perspectives. So we need equal opportunities, and that's something I really carry with me.
Lars, I'm wondering how you came into this world with, big, bold visions and the confidence to stand up for them. Where do you think that is coming from?
I
Did you
think it's
have
on one
particular
side.
role models?
I think it's on one side just luck. What I said, the environment I grew up in, the chances I got. But then the other side, it is something that drives me. Some children, some young people are driven by gaming or playing football, or having fun in the forest and in the nature. And what drives me is standing up for the things I think are important. So that's something, and I don't really get tired of doing these things. When I'm now at university, I have a long day of lectures and I'm like very, very tired. But then I can prepare a speech at UN, or I can make a video about something I think is important, and my energy level is very high again. So this is my priority. This is something that gives me energy and that drives me, because I think this is so important. It needs attention, and I think there's too little attention for it. So I'm happy to step in to take the role of raising these topics at every stage, because as I said, I'm doing it at a national stage as vice chair of the Dutch NGO Coalition on Children's Rights, which is like the watchdog for children's rights in the Netherlands. If the government is violating children's rights, this coalition of 5 major NGOs can raise it, can say, hi, what you're doing is not good, change it, do it now. And as I said, as EU Youth Delegate to the United Nations, representing young people's visions at, well, what I like to call the Champions League of international diplomacy.
Yes, amazing.
Maybe also good to say, this interview, I'm doing it on my own behalf, not as one of these roles. I think that's the best. So I can say very bad things about the EU and Brussels. I won't do it, I'll promise, but I can.
Lars, I'm wondering, what would you say are your main learnings in all of those advocacy roles that you hold?
That's a very good question. That's also a bit of a hard question. Um, I think when I started doing this, of course, I knew children can do incredible things. But every time I meet amazing young people, amazing children, I am surprised about what they can do. I'm surprised about 16-year-olds having their own organizations of beach cleanups in Indonesia. I'm surprised by young girls from Afghanistan who can actually change laws. There was a law in Afghanistan that prohibited young women, girls, from singing. And there was a 15 or 16-year-old girl, and she started this trend on social media, and she sang. She sang a beautiful song, and the Afghan government lifted this ban because of her actions. Those are things, and I'm very privileged. I get to meet these amazing young people, and I get to get inspired by their stories, and they surprise me every day. So what I can learn, what I learned the last years, I think, is to never be surprised and to believe that children can do the most amazing things, but also to stay naive. Maybe that sounds a bit weird. I think one of the main powers of young people is that they can be idealistic. They can dream about things that adults are well, no, we tried that before. That's not possible. Let's not waste our efforts on this. Children and youth can believe, they can dream. And I think that's something we need. We have these amazing major challenges. I said climate change, we have wars, we have mental health issues, we have extreme poverty. We need out of the box thinking. And children and young people can do that because they are not rusted and locked in old traditions and methods. And I think a lot of adults are. We tried this before, it didn't work. We did it always like this. So let's keep doing it like this. I think we need out of the box thinking. We need people who can dream, who can believe, and who can be a bit naive, I think.
I couldn't agree more. And we need to do more dreaming and co-creation in any case, because we have big challenges in the world and we are not managing really to bring about enough change. And we also see leadership that is quite extreme towards the right, and that is not something that is benefiting the most amount of people. So I love what you stand for, Lars, and I couldn't agree more. I'm wondering, what is the future that you want to see and be a part of?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. I think the future I want to see is a future where we can take care of the ones that need it the most,
Mm,
where the people who can afford to contribute a bit more do so. A world where we can fight climate change, where we can stop global warming to protect not only my future, but also those of the generations after me.
yeah.
Um, and a world in which we start to believe that we can create a peaceful world without any wars, without any violence. And I know people will call me naive for saying this, but I actually believe we can.
Yeah.
We can by doing together. We can. Maybe I can give you the example of the European Union because I'm pretty sure when people raised this idea decades ago about a united Europe,
Mm,
just after World War II, people would say they are crazy. But look at us now. We are united in 27 countries. We are really united in diversity, which is the slogan of the European Union. I think it's an amazing slogan.
yeah.
We are keeping our own diversity and we are embracing it and we can unite in it. And I think that's something we need also for multilateralism. We need also at the United Nations in international relations. And if we can do so, if we can respect other countries, if we can respect other perspectives and other points of view,
Yeah.
I think then we can accomplish the most incredible things. But we need everyone for it. We need all perspectives, all different backgrounds, and of course also all generations.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Lars. And I think you talked about something very important, which is something we don't do enough of anymore. And we used to, is that we can agree to disagree. You know, things like the European Union with all of its faults, and there's millions of those, but the benefits are so much greater and they outweigh all these challenges and difficulties. And it is super difficult to unite 27 countries, and there are
Yes,
a
it
lot of
is.
things wrong with it, but this big vision of pulling on the same sort of chord, that is very powerful. And I think we have lost that sight, and we've lost sight of how together we can be much stronger. No matter how divided we are, we can even agree to disagree, and we can still pull on the same string. So, Lars, what do you feel sort of makes you feel aligned and powerful and like you feel you're walking into the right direction?
Well, that's a question I ask myself many times. Um, Because if you are fighting for a cause, you can easily lose sight of the bigger picture, especially if you're working really hard on one specific word in a UN resolution because they are negotiating days about one specific word. It's incredible to see. I saw it when I was in New York a couple of weeks ago. And if you are focusing that much on those wordings and on those very small things, it is sometimes hard to see the bigger picture. So I try to zoom out many times to see what are we actually doing. Is this actually benefiting for my cause, for my goals? The goals of giving children and youth a seat at the table, for protecting our future, for making sure there are equal opportunities for everyone. And I try to ask this also to a lot of people, and mostly to children and young people, because they are extremely honest. They're sometimes it's awkwardly honest, but I think it's amazing. And if they tell me that I'm doing the right thing, if they are raising topics, I think, well, that's what I'm working on, then I know I'm on the right track, and it gives me only more energy to keep fighting for it. And yes, sometimes I get frustrated if we are working for days on one word in one sentence, in one paragraph, in one resolution. But there are so many things, and those small accomplishments, sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a video that went viral and you reached a lot of people. Sometimes it's one amazing conversation that inspired me, and sometimes it's a speech you gave, and sometimes, well, it can be a lot of things, but those small accomplishments, those are the things that give me energy, and the things that make me want to go even further and want to keep doing this.
Yeah, amazing, Lars. What would you say are your deal breakers? Is there something that it's just a non-negotiable for me? What are those non-negotiables for you?
Yeah, sometimes that is quite hard in a representing role, because of course, what I'm saying is I want to represent young voices, and if those young voices are saying something different than I think, well, that can be a challenge. And I really know that, and I knew that before I stepped into these roles. So I said before, well, of course, young people's visions are always very different from each other. So what I'm trying to do is find a common ground, something we can all agree on, and then move further. But of course, I have my own principles. I have those deal breakers you said, and those are things as equality, equities, things as freedom, things as dignity, and I think those things are very important, more important than representing youth. And I won't do anything that is in contrast with these principles. And I said it before very clearly. These are the things I think are important. And I won't do anything that is different from that.
Lars, and I think that's very important. And I love that you lead with that, because those frameworks that keep us in place, right, and keep us pushing ahead, they're very clear with you. And I think that's really inspiring, and gives clarity to others and permission to others to be able to do the same, and not to get corrupted by systems or bending yourselves backwards. Who do you think, who are your role models and why?
That's a good question. I have a lot of role models, to be honest. I told you about the boy in Burkina Faso, the ninth poorest country in the world. I visited him last summer, and he had a hard life, but he still designated his efforts to help young people with mental health issues. That's someone who is my role model, someone who can so focus on making other people's lives better. I really have a lot of respect for that, and I really see him as one of the people that inspire me. But also big children's rights activists, as Malala, for example, climate activists as Greta Thunberg, who really saw a problem and thought, I will change it, and no matter what, I will save the world. Like those bold, idealistic perspectives and plans. But also, and I think the International Children's Peace Prize is a great example. It's now for the 21st time it's awarded in November. Um, and the winners of this prize, I got to help organize it last year, the 20th edition, when this Afghan girl, which I talked about, won.
Yeah.
And reading those stories, there's a book of all the 20 stories. Wow. When I read this book, I'm like, wow, this power young people have, that inspires me. I like all of them are my role models, to be honest.
Lars, so what will the world look like when you succeed and we adults are opening the spaces at our tables for children to, or young people to co-create with us?
When children actually get a seat at the table, they will be able to raise the topics they think are important, and they will make sure that policy aligns more with their interests, with their beliefs, and with the things they need. And you can see that in very different contexts. For example, if it goes to peace building or peace negotiations, as EU Youth Delegate, I launched together with my co-delegate and with my Ukrainian colleagues a manifesto last October on the involvement of youth in peace negotiations. Because if youth are involved in these negotiations, they can raise the topics they struggle with, like mental health problems, like education disruption, like unemployment. And they can make sure that young people can actually be agents of peace instead of marginalized risks. And they can make sure that the peace is sustainable for when the young generation has to take over. So that's one example. I started this episode with the example of education.
Yeah.
When we make sure that education really aligns with the needs of young people, when young people can learn the way they want to learn. Let me talk about climate change. If young people actually get a seat at the table, they can say, hey, well, wait, what are you doing? You are disrupting our future. Um, you are going on and on and on with things you did all the time, but it isn't working because we want a future as well. And we want a future for our children and our grandchildren. So children can have those amazing, beautiful, different visions to raise the topics they think are important, but also on the other side, they can think boldly, they can think out of the box, they can come up with different solutions. And together with the experienced visions of adults and older people, I think if they can actually work together on an equal level, we can accomplish the most beautiful things.
Amazing. Lars, so what are your plans and goals? What are you studying now? Where do you feel you need to head? Where do you see yourself progressing into?
Well, I just started my studies, international studies in The Hague. As I said, I'm the vice chair of the Dutch NGO Coalition on Children's Rights. I'm the EU Youth Delegate to the United Nations. I'm also still an 18-year-old boy, so I also like to play football sometimes. And I'm fighting for children's rights. So I can't tell you what I'll be doing in a year. I honestly don't know because there are things coming up, and there are opportunities, and I take them or I don't take them.
Yeah.
And it worked like this for the past 9 years since I started advocating for children's rights. But I can tell you that I want to make a change. I want to make a change for the good. I want to make sure that children and youth are actually heard, that our future, that there will be a future for us, and that there will be equal opportunities for all. And I think around these three pillars, I will try to make a change. I will keep working on it. And if it's diplomacy or politics or journalism or law or advocacy or NGOs or whatever, I don't know yet, but I will fight
Yeah.
for the good.
Yeah. Lars, so I'm wondering, how can we encourage more young people to stand up for what they believe in?
I think it's not really encourage them because I think a lot of children and young people are waiting to be heard.
Mm.
They have things they believe in. They have things they think are important, but they don't know how to express them because they don't know if there are spaces for them to stand up, to speak up. And they don't know if those spaces that are there, they don't know where. And I think that's the problem. I think if we can actually make sure that there are spaces for young people to be heard, that there are mechanisms in politics, in diplomacy, in organizations, in governments, for young people to give their opinion. I think there will be lines outside of the door, long lines of young people waiting to be heard, who wrote everything they think is important, and they want to express it so badly. So I think that's the one side. And on the other side, to young people, I want to say, if they are talking about you, make sure they're talking with you as well. So if you're in a room full of adults talking about education, speak up. If you're in a room full of adults talking about climate, speak up. And if you're in a room talking about with adults about whatever, just speak up and make them listen to you, because your vision is crucial, is really underestimated, and adults deserve to know that. Adults deserve to hear your voice, and adults deserve to have the pleasure to be inspired by your visions. So I would advise all young people to just stand up, step up, and speak up, and make sure adults listen to you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, Lars, I've seen now there are many big companies, especially media companies, who are setting up teen advisory boards. This is
Yes.
what is needed in all the spaces, right?
Yes.
Not just for business. Not just for business who do it because, of course, it benefits their business, right? By including all the different generations, they're going to be more successful. But we are also going to be more successful as a society if we include young people. And we have to set up these advisory boards to get people to be able to create that co-creation.
Yes, and you see that businesses are actually realizing, wow, if we listen to young people, it benefits us.
Yeah.
Because more perspectives are more solutions, are more possible solutions, are more visions, and it benefits us. So businesses already know a lot of them. Yeah. So now it's time for governments and organizations as well
to follow suit. Yeah. Lars, what takeaways would you like to have our listeners have from your story?
As I said, I think young people are really good in dreaming and believing. So maybe think back when you were a child yourself, the way you looked at the world, the naive, idealistic perspective you had, the dreams you had, the things you believed in. And I understand when gaining experience, when learning old methods and traditions, you lose a bit of those dreams, a bit of that idealism. But just talk to your younger self. What would your younger self say to you? Would it be proud of you? Would it say, hey, we dreamed about other things. We dreamed about doing big things, about really changing the world. So maybe just have a little chat with your younger self sometimes and ask, what am I doing? Am I doing it right? And even better, talk actually with children. Because as I said, children know really well what's good for them, what's good for the world, what's good for the future, and they deserve to be heard.
I want to high five you. Yes, and Lars, amazing. I love how you lead. I love that you value honesty. I love that you understand that the big systems we set up aren't perfect, but multilateralism is definitely a way forward. I'm so excited for what else you're going to lead with in your life. And thank you for leading at WECAN.
Thank you so much for having me.